John, I'll start with you with that question. How on earth could this have happened?
Well, we're obviously still looking at all the information that's coming in, but apparently this was sort of good visual conditions. Airplanes could see each other in a area like Washington National. You have military operations due to the Pentagon and things like that, and you have the airport right there. So it's not unusual in these kind of conditions for the air traffic controllers to allow the airplanes to look at each other and self-separate. In this case, the controller had given the clearance to the helicopter to avoid the traffic, to basically head them in sight. And apparently, for whatever reason, the helicopter pilots got distracted or something happened and they didn't see the airplane and collided.
I mean, didn't see the airplane. I guess we have to rule that in as a possibility, Whiz, because you can hear the controller saying, forgive me for not having the exact quote, but can you see the plane? And the answer was yes. And then the collision happened seconds thereafter. What's something like 7 to 10 seconds thereafter. So we don't know, the instruction, the question is a little vague. Which plane? Must have been obvious to the air traffic controller, but we don't know that it was obvious to the helicopter pilot.
Megyn, you nailed it. First of all, good afternoon. And you're right. Very, very somber day. Just absolutely devastating. But I think you nailed it. When the pilot in command or the pilot in the helicopter said, hey, traffic in sight, it clearly most likely wasn't the same traffic that the air traffic controller was talking about. So a couple things, in my opinion, happened. Once the air traffic controller hears from the helo crew, hey, traffic in sight, kind of a mental check in his mind that says, okay, let me go do some other things now. He has that traffic in sight. Clearly, he didn't have that exact traffic in sight because he ends up hitting him. Might have had a different traffic in sight, might have gotten task saturated, as John alluded to. But I've seen what are allegedly the ATC tapes. I'm pretty sure they are the real ATC tapes on X. And when you have two contacts on your scope going towards each other, you got to say something. The controller could have potentially come up and said, hey, Pat 25, confirm that you have traffic left 11, same altitude in sight. So maybe a little bit more directive. But as John alluded to, and you certainly said, a mishap like this just should not happen. And if you're a white knuckle flyer right now and you're a little worried, it's almost passé to say, but it is a hell of a lot more dangerous driving to the airport. This doesn't happen too often because of the safeguards, of the visual lookout that we have, of the air traffic control procedures. Something broke down. And as John knows, in aviation mishaps, we call it a Swiss cheese model, right? All the holes have to align up for a mishap to happen. And it's going to be very interesting to see what the different holes are. But Megyn, when I went to Pensacola Naval Air Station as a young naval aviator, they told me a couple things. Aviation is a self-cleaning oven. You have got to have the most elite, the most qualified individuals in the cockpit and in the tower. Because years ago, CRM, Crew Resource Management, we actually brought the controllers technically into the cockpit. They're kind of a crew member. And I'll never forget one of my crusty flight instructors telling me, hey, Whiz, everybody's trying to kill you, including you. So keep your head on a swivel.
Mm-hmm. Can you guys explain, I don't know, John, maybe this is for you, but can you explain what we're seeing in that video that we just played? Because, I mean, if you look at it closely, you can see what appears to be the plane, the regional jet, the American jet in the front. And then there does appear to be another aircraft. I'm assuming it's the helicopter, but I don't know, coming from behind. It looks almost like it's chasing the plane. But I don't know that that's the helicopter.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if you want to play it again, but the
let's
helicopter is actually it's just a light dot that's moving from left to right. Okay, in the airplane, you're actually seeing their landing light coming at you. There, in the bigger picture, there was another airplane behind.
Yes.
So what happens in a place like Logan, or National, you'll have multiple airplanes lining up. So this is the way you might. So the one you see now in the distance is an airplane that's behind, right?
But there's something approaching it. So that's not the helicopter. That's a different airplane.
Yeah, the helicopter is coming from left to right in the image. So it's a very
Okay.
faint line. They don't have a very light thing. And so this is one of the issues, did the helicopter pick up the wrong traffic? They were given the location when they acknowledged the traffic over the bridge at 1,200 feet. So they knew where to look. They saw a target there. Was it the right one? It's not clear. The other thing that we understand is that this was a night training mission. One of the things that happens in night training missions is the pilots will be actually using night vision goggles. Normally, you would not use night vision goggles in the city. You would use it in a dark area. But who knows? Were they through the goggles? In the goggles, things kind of blow up, so they're harder to get depth perception.
So night vision goggles would not be good. You're saying, I mean, like I've never worn them, so I don't know. But you would not want those on the helicopters? Pilots.
You wouldn't be using them near the city, because what happens is when you have lots of lights, they kind of glare out or they blow out on the image, so it's hard to distinguish things. So use the night vision goggles in dark areas, and when you get to where there's lots of lights, you would normally not use them. So I would be surprised if they were using them. The one other thing I would say is that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead, John, finish it.
Oh yeah, so the controller did point out a few seconds before that, did see they were close and did confirm to the helicopter, go behind the jet, don't go in front of it. So there was acknowledgement on the part of the controller. They did do a reminder to the airplane. It may have been too late by that point.
So do we think, Whiz, that this was, does it look to you at this point like helicopter pilot error? Because what I'm seeing on the screen and what I'm hearing from you guys isn't really looking at the pilot of that regional jet so much as, what was this helicopter doing?
No, exactly. The RJ crew, they were in the zone. They were cleared to land, gear down, flaps down, stabilized approach. They're looking at the runway environment. Is there an airliner on there? Is somebody crossing? They're singularly focused. If I was the captain of that RJ and I heard a potential traffic call and I heard that traffic say, "Hey, that guy's in sight," done. I'm going to press forward here. So nothing on the RJ crew. And Megyn, I'll be honest with you, as a naval aviator, after these type of mishaps, I'm torn, right? Because you don't want to spike the football, but also as an aviator, we want to dig into this. Half the crowd says, "Oh, we need to wait for the investigation." Everybody, nuh-uh. I'm not in that crowd. I'm in the crowd of, this is aviation, man. We have got to figure out, what is it? Occam's razor, right? The most reasonable thing often is. So in this case, the pilot in command of the Army helicopter is, you signed for the jet. I was a single seat F-18 pilot. As a young 27-year-old kid, I took a pen and I signed for that airplane. I am the pilot in command and ultimately responsible. So on that mission, and last night when, hey, traffic in sight, I got this. Again, I hate talking like this in this type of moment, but at the end of the day, it's most likely going to come down to that. Since day one of aviation, Megyn, it's don't hit anything in the sky or anything on the ground. That's kind of rule number one of aviation. And the controllers do their best to help us out, but at the end of the day, it's eyeballs in the cockpit. And as I said earlier, everybody in aviation is trying to kill you, including you. So you have to keep your head on a swivel. And as John alluded to,
no error.
No, and in and around Reagan, DCA, that whole area, it's almost the Battle of Britain sometimes. You have VIP helicopters, you got airliners, and it's very crowded airspace, even though it's the most controlled airspace on the planet, especially after 9/11. So after this mishap, the hair on the back of the neck is going to stand up with a lot of aviators in a lot of environments that say, "Hey, man, we have got to keep eyeballs out of the cockpit and let's not hit anything." Mission objective number one.
It feels like the helicopters should not be allowed anywhere near the path of these commercial airliners, though I realize they've been doing it a lot without any incident. So it's like, okay, just because one went bad doesn't say it should all be banned. But John, is there some minimum required distance that they're supposed to keep, when they're in the airspace?
There is minimum distance that depends on the conditions. So if it had been cloudy and they were being controlled by radar, there is a minimum distance that has to be separated, which is actually very large. As a result of that, that slows traffic down into into Reagan, et cetera. So you would actually have to shut off the jet traffic to allow a helicopter to go by. And it's not just not just the military helicopters. At the same time, there was a medevac helicopter that was operating in the airspace. So this is really a result of Reagan being so close to the city, and they've worked out procedures where the helicopters stay over the water and move around. So that there are sort of standard procedures. And the minimum, when you're given visual separation and you accept the responsibility, which the helicopter did, is that you then you're responsible for staying out of it. But there is no minimum distance at that point. It's just where you feel safe and steer clear. So I think the real question
Wiz,
is,
would you know as a helicopter pilot? I mean, I don't know. Is there a calculation that shows you how big you are and how close you're getting to the plane, or is it just your knowledge of this is the size of the aircraft I'm in, and I don't want to get anywhere near that?
It's like driving your car around a parking lot. Don't hit the other car. Don't hit the other airplane. So I mean, you're used to the different dynamics and speeds in whatever. And they should have been able to do it. So was there a miscalculation? Did they get distracted? Did they see the wrong target? Were they using night vision goggles or something? We don't know that. This is what will be the focus of the investigation. So I think that, you wouldn't do this on purpose. So there was clearly some sort of error. And the thing that we try to do in accident investigation is to dig into the cause. What is it that would have caused the pilots to be head down? And we don't know what that is right now. So,
I mean, I suppose we should leave open the possibility of helicopter malfunction too. I mean, we don't know for sure.
Yeah. I mean, was something going on in the helicopter? Was somebody sick and they get distracted? That's what I'm saying. There can be distraction. There could be equipment problems. And this was a training mission. They could have been focused on what they were doing on the training. So we don't know. But they, up until that point, appeared to be operating normally.
We continue to face uncertainty when it comes to the economy, with a perfect storm brewing as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point as the largest generation is hitting retirement. A smaller workforce means a smaller tax base. You pair that with our growing national debt and the rising cost of living, and we could have a very big problem on our hands. So what are you doing right now to protect your family for the future? Gold can be a very safe haven in very hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k in whole or in part into an IRA in gold. And it won't cost you one penny, not one, out of pocket. Protect your future today. Text MK to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold and a copy of The Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation, just information. Birch Gold has earned the trust of countless Americans looking to safeguard their savings. Text my initials, MK, to the number 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.